gallery size sculpture. It's not about larger outdoor sculpture or other kinds of projects I've done. It's just the smaller work that I'm doing right now. So this is kind of where my head's at. And then so we started in the horseshoe shape, kind of in the leg over here, and came around. So this is a quote that is meaningful to me. So it's of particular importance to me because as someone invested in making sculpture, which is finite, concrete, by definition, a pretty defined object, I often remind myself that my own interest is in sculpture as a kind of proposal, as a kind of question. So even though the physical object seems bounded, conceptually I don't see it as bounded. I see it as unresolved. Right. Conceptually, I'm interested in the sculpture not having a limit, and so it isn't. I would say what I'm interested in my sculpture doing is entering into an inductive process, not being the result of a deductive process. Does that make sense?
I understood the first time.
Okay. Yeah. When I talk, I don't usually remember what I said. That's one of the gifts. But I don't want to reflect on the lecture later and feel like I did a bad job. So what I want to talk about next is a little bit about place and process. So a pretty common idea that where an artist lives and works influences what's made to a greater or lesser extent. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then also process, the ways that I make sculpture and how those affect what the finished piece looks like and what it is. So I wanted to start with what I'm attempting to do in Oregon, and the goal here is, I guess, the goal has been to enter into a process that was uncomfortable, and for a couple of reasons. I think ultimately art making at its best makes the maker uncomfortable. That's one of the goals. Oftentimes makes the audience uncomfortable, and so I want to go into a place where that's both familiar and unknown to me. And so that's what making art is. And now and then I try to manifest that kind of thinking in my life in all ways. So this is an example. In 2006, I bought 28 acres in Oregon. This is I don't own the mountain, but this is part of my land here. So what I'm hoping to do there is have a very different experience than the kind of experience I have here, both in terms of living and in terms of creating. And there's some different ironies involved. So, and I'll show you images of my studio here in a moment. But there, what I've started doing is building a little house. I think of it as a cabin. So these are some images of that. Eventually, I hope to build a sculpture studio, which is planned for the laser pointing it up for this spot. That spot, this big sculpture studio there. So that's the goal. It's a little bit further along. And so I go into this really not having any background in construction per se. I mean, I've done work as a carpenter, but I've never built a house myself. And so this I'm building myself. And I think the point I wanted to make here for me, the grace and the blessing of being an artist is being willing to take on projects that seem insurmountable, or maybe even impossible, and then seeing what happens. Knowing that something will happen. It may not be what I think will happen, but something will happen. So it's kind of learning how to live through being an artist. So I feel like being an artist has taught me how to be a person, not the other way around.
But it's clear that process is important, or maybe more important than the product, right? So
yeah, that's my conclusion.
So there's a dialectic.
You just said it. It took me about 15 years to get to that point.
Well, no, you articulated it. I just picked up what you said, but there is a kind of dialogue, a cosmic dialogue between the artist and the cosmos, really.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So this is close to what it looks like now. It's a little bit farther along. So one of the ironies in living here in the city and feeling kind of this is where I live here, feeling closed in a little bit. And as a sculptor, it's made my work smaller. So the images of the sculpture I've shown you thus far, is kind of condensed. And so I thought, well, I'll go to Oregon, and that is where I'm from, and I'll have a bigger space there. But by the time it's all kind of come to pass thus far in terms of time, materials, energy, money, my space there is the living space is tiny, smaller than what I have here, but the space around it is bigger than I have here, so it's a kind of inversion. I think that's funny. So I went there to get more room. This is where I live in Hamtramck. Those of you that know the area, American Axle is right about here. On the first floor, I have a drawing studio, and I converted the garage. You can kind of see it peeking back here. That's my sculpture studio. One of the things that I'm doing now, it doesn't show in this image, the house, which would be over here, right here, burned down when I bought that, and I just had that lot cleared. So that's another adventure. What I wanted to do is show you a few images of my studio and then talk about my process. This is kind of coming down that little driveway. The house would be over here. This is the door to my studio. So far, it's worked as pretty good security just to have a bunch of crap out here. Yeah. So going through that door, this is what you see. I'll talk about these in a minute. This is kind of the start of my process. I do drawings on wood. So the door that we came in is over here, and then we were looking here. Now it's the studio is kind of an L shape. So this is one leg of the L, and then the rest of the studio is back over here. So in contrast to a lot of ideas about maybe historical ideas about the romanticism of being an artist, or the studio as a kind of it is a special place to me, but it's very functional and pretty raw. So it's not necessarily a comfortable place. I'd say it's probably an uncomfortable place. So this is the bigger room. This is another image. So I think it's an irony. One of the ironies would be I came to sculpture through philosophy and really as a kind of investigation into a mind-body connection. And so I go to my studio. That's usually where I think the best. And to me, it's a contemplative place, but it's also kind of light industrial and raw. And so there's some kind of a full range there I'm trying to occupy simultaneously. So I guess my hope is